Hi there BookTube, it's Eleanor here, and this is my weekly wrap up for my Snakes and Ladders TBR. So far I'm really enjoying this, and it's really been pushing me to pick up the books. I have to say I'm quite into the old audiobooks at the moment. I feel like they're really just helping me to read more and to enjoy more. It's this sort of time of year, this last half term before the summer holidays at school, where everyone just gets really tired. The teachers are tired, the TAs are tired, the children are tired, and it's a really long half term for us, and I just in the evenings cannot even function to read the words on a page. So to have them played to me into my ear and I can just sort of follow along gently with the book or just sit there and listen, it's been really nice. I'm going to yawn now because that's how tired I am. Oh, sorry. So this week I've had a really productive week. I've read 5 things and I've DNF'd 1. So, you know, it was going to happen. Not every book that I pick off of my shelf I'm going to like, and you know, I'm just not going to slog through something that I'm not enjoying. So the book unfortunately that I've DNF'd is Women Talking by Miriam Towles, and lots of people absolutely love this book, and I think the subject matter is a really important one to be talking about. I just couldn't get on with the writing style and I just wasn't enjoying it. We're basically sort of I only read about 50 pages, but this is about between 2005 and 2009 in a Mennonite colony. Over 100 girls and women were knocked unconscious and raped repeatedly by what many thought were ghosts or demons. Their accounts were dismissed as wild female imagination. Women Talking is an imagined response to these real events. 8 illiterate women with no knowledge of the world outside their community meet secretly in a hayloft to decide how to protect themselves and their daughters from future harm. They have 2 days before the rapists are bailed out and brought home. And we've got this sort of person, this male that is the narrator of the story, who is the one documenting what they're speaking about, but I just couldn't connect or follow along even for me, and that sounds terrible, but I just couldn't get on with this one. So I'm going to be passing it on to someone who might enjoy it a bit more. But now on for the books that I did really enjoy. I had a 5-star read in there, but I'll come to that one in a bit. So the first one I want to talk about is Vox by Christina Dalcher, and I enjoyed this. It was kind of what I expected, really. The basic premise is it's set in this near future, which could actually be sort of tomorrow. It could be, you know, any time now, where America has decided that women are only allowed to speak 100 words. They are not allowed to have their own bank accounts or hold their own passports, and from 3 months of age all women and all women are, or girls or babies are fitted with these bracelets, and if they go over 100 words they get this electric current shoot through them, and the more they go over it, so say you're shouting and screaming and angry and you go over it, the first one is a light sort of electric charge, and then they get more intense the more you go over your limit. So with this change, there's been political change. Women have lost their jobs. Girls are no longer taught to read and write at school. We're following one mother's journey with her family. There is a mother and a father. She was a scientist, but now is unable to do that. She has 2 sons who are older and a daughter who's quite young, and we're following sort of the trials that take place in terms of how that affects your life when you can only speak 100 words, what things have to change. I mean, one of the most impactful parts of this book for me was when the woman is woken up in the middle of the night because her daughter is screaming, having a nightmare, and all she can think of is to get in there quickly, and not just because she wants to calm her, but because she needs to stop her from screaming and talking and going over her 100-word limit because it's not reached midnight. I just thought that was really interesting and a great way to show you know, how difficult everyday things and occurrences, especially with young children, can be in this situation. Where it sort of fell a little bit lower for me, and where the enjoyment waned a little bit, was when it started she got her job back working towards a cure for a particular disease, and it all got a little bit like conspiracy and a little bit more fast-paced, and in this instance I can understand why, but I just it sort of changed the whole way the book was written and the whole sort of build up to the book changed, and it didn't work for me in quite the same way. It also felt like the ending was just a bit rushed and it all came about a bit fast. So I'd say the biggest problem for me with this one is just the pacing. But I did really enjoy it, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. The next book I want to talk about is All These Beautiful Strangers by Elizabeth Clayforth. I'm actually reading this as well, or read it for my book club, and I haven't had my meeting about it yet, but I wanted to make sure that I got it read quite quickly. This is about Charlie. She is a student at a sort of an elite boarding school, and she's just been tapped for this secret society called the A's. If you're part of the A's, it's like the super secret society. You're meant to be able to sort of rule the school, and it follows you on into later life and helps you with everything going forward. But there is sort of an initiation, and that initiation comes across as quite cruel and mean, some of the things that you have to do and the people that you have to sort of get into trouble. And Charlie's not feeling 100% certain that she's enjoying that. However, she's going along with it, and we're starting to learn about her and her friends and her home life, and we discover that her mother has disappeared some years before, and then there starts to be some sort of chance encounters with different people in her life that sort of open this back up for her and start to get her more interested in what actually happened to her mother, and she starts to sort of follow these threads and looking into these things a little bit more and how they tie into this A's society, and this sort of mystery starts to unravel. One thing that I really enjoyed with this is its sort of build up of suspense. I thought that was really good, and I thought the pacing of the book was really good as well. I also enjoyed how this was written in 3 points of views. We had Charlie's, we had her mother's from the past, and we also had her father's from the past. So we are sort of going along and learning more about her mother's past as the story unfolds. I think the biggest issue for me with this is that I just didn't connect with the characters. I didn't enjoy them. I didn't feel like they were perhaps fleshed out enough. They didn't feel real to me. And that's something that's really important to me when reading them. So I enjoyed this, but didn't love it. And the sort of ending I felt was a little bit, well, I kind of knew what was going to happen, but actually the book could have got away with that had I've sort of been a bit more interested in the characters. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars. The next 2 books I want to talk to you about are both non-fiction. The first one is called The Unexpected Truth About Animals by Lucy Cook, and this one I ended up giving 4 stars, and I listened to it on audio. It was narrated by Lucy herself, which I really enjoyed. Lucy is a broadcaster and filmmaker, and also a master in zoology, and this book was a fun read. Each chapter is a different animal, and she takes us from these sort of myths and things that people believed in the past about these animals, and brings us up to more current and you know, the things that we actually know are truth now. And it's just really, there's some really interesting facts in there. There's some really interesting and fun stories about historical scientists and their predictions and their thoughts on things. And yeah, I just thought it was a really fun read, and some of these facts that were in here I think I will remember for a long time. There was one fact about vultures, that vulture poo is so sort of anti like disinfectant that if we used it, we could use it as antibacterial hand wash, and I think that's why they poo all over things and themselves. And if you wanted to know, female hyenas have the biggest clitoris of all animals. I also learnt that drunk moose have been known to terrorise some towns, I think it was in Sweden, during certain times of the year. So there was just so much fun about this, and I really enjoyed reading some of these fun and interesting facts. I think the biggest downfalls for this were that I didn't really enjoy hearing about I mean, I know that, you know, this is the past, and you know, we can't change the past, so we can only report the facts. So Lucy does talk a lot about the testing on animals and the way that animals were tested to discover things here, and it made me feel a little bit but I appreciate that that's what happened and that's how they did things, but the animal cruelty aspect of that I didn't like so much hearing about on a personal level. And I think the other thing is that some of the chapters I felt were too long, whereas others could have been fleshed out a bit. So I felt like perhaps we were spending too long on some animals and not enough on others, and I wish that they'd sort of managed that a little bit better in terms of chapter length. But I really enjoyed this, and I definitely recommend it if you want a interesting and factual and fun book about various different animals. There is penguins and pandas and chimpanzees and moose and hippo and stork and frog and bat and vulture and hyena and sloth and beaver and eel. So there you go, lots to be reading about. The other non-fiction book I read this week, which I also gave 4 stars, was Unnatural Causes, The Life and Many Deaths of Britain's Top Forensic Pathologist by Dr. Richard Shepherd. I wasn't sure about this. Sometimes I find these a bit dry, sometimes I can't really get on board with them, but I really enjoyed reading about this, and I thought it just had a really good mix of facts and sort of stories in terms of sort of, you know, cases, and that more sort of personal side where Dr. Shepherd lets us into his personal life, and that really just helps you to turn someone just from their job into a human being, and I think that helps to humanize him when you're reading it. So we're following Dr. Shepherd in his life in forensic pathology, how he got into it. We're finding out about some of the high profile cases that he's worked on, like 9/11 and Princess Diana's death, and then some other cases which you know, are just interesting in themselves, or maybe did hit headlines for different reasons, or changed the way that he thought about what he was doing, or how he thought about treating people, or just ones that he thought were interesting and worth noting. And alongside that, we're also following about his personal life, about his marriage, about his children, about how being a pathologist and being on call all the time took its toll on his marriage, and how, you know, managing that and managing 2 young children, and all of that fit into his life. My favourite thing about this was the way that he walked us through the evidence of different cases that he worked in, and we found out how that fit into sort of court cases as well, and how he came across the evidence and his thought process for that, and I thought that was really interesting. So I really enjoyed this. I definitely recommend it, and I gave it 4 stars. And then the 5-star read, yay! And I'm not surprised by this one at all. I gave Kid Gloves by Lucy Knisley 5 stars. A lot of Lucy Knisley's more recent works, like Relish and Something Borrowed or Something New, I have given 5 stars. I love Lucy's artwork style. It just really works for me. I love reading her books and what she has to write, and this one documents the 9 months of her carrying her baby, and yeah, there was parts in this, I have to be honest, that really triggered me a little bit, given what Lucy went through during the birth of her son. Very much took me back to the birth of my daughter. There was quite a lot of similarities there in some ways, and I definitely did find it hard, but I'm really thankful to one of you that actually said to me, you warned me that it sounded like it was quite similar to stuff that I talked about before, and I'm really thankful for that, because it meant I went in with my eyes wide open, and yeah, I was fine but a little bit tearful, and I just felt terrible for Lucy, because what a terrible thing to go through. This book covers miscarriage, morning sickness, a traumatizing birth, but also Lucy's usual wit and interesting information about various animals, specifically the elephant and its gestation period, and just, you know, her documenting her time during this time, how she felt, how it can sort of put a strain on your relationship in certain aspects, and yeah, I really enjoyed this. I love her writing style. I love everything she comes out with. I will definitely be reading the next one, so I really recommend this if you've liked her other books, or you want to give this one a go. And you know, don't be scared to give it a go if you are pregnant. It's not going to put you off pregnancy. But one of the things that I thought was really good that she did highlight, and that I always say to people, is we go to these sort of pregnancy groups, and we go to these groups, especially in the UK, there's a group called NCT, where you can meet a lot of people that will be friends, you know, after pregnancy with your children, which is great. But some of the stuff they teach you, I think, from a personal level, isn't very helpful, because they talk about birth, and often they talk about a normal birth, and they spend maybe a very small amount of time talking about what happens if things go wrong. And I'm always one of a belief that forewarned is forearmed, and if I've got the facts, I'm not scared anymore. And when I was giving birth, I was terrified because I wasn't told what was going on. I didn't have any clue what was happening, and I felt out of control. And when you are, you know, desperately waiting for this child that you are giving birth to, and you're feeling that motherly sort of need to look after and protect, and you feel out of control and like you don't really understand what's going on, it can be incredibly traumatic and emotional. And I think that they should talk to you more about that in these sort of baby groups. I think people say that you might get scared, or it might, you know, make people worried. But personally, I believe that it's better to know these stories and hear these stories before, so that if it happens to you, you know that, yes, this is going to be a tough thing to get through. Yes, this is what's happening, and this is the reason why. But we get through it, and this, you know, this is what's going to happen. And I think, you know, if you can keep the mother calm, that will help everything else as well. Anyway, that is my rant over. But I really recommend this one, and I give it 5 stars, obviously. And yeah. So lots of books read this month, this week, sorry, not this month, we haven't finished yet. Well, I've got my fingers crossed, I might actually do this TBR, who knows. I'm not going to be doing it exactly the same way next month. I'm going to be taking on board what you've said with the 2 dice, because it's not sustainable for more than a month. But at the moment, I'm really pushing myself and I'm really enjoying it. So a good week for me. How's your week been? Have you had anything good? Any 5 stars your end? Let me know as always, and let's chat in the comments down below. Bye for now, BookTube.